Starting from the very beginning, this video will cover the entire story of Destiny. This lore is fascinating, and a recap like this also provides important context to what is actually happening in the modern-day version of the game. I am working on a longer version of this video that will come out soon, but for now, this will cover all of the most important stories and lore from the past 10 years of the Destiny franchise. So from the very origins of the universe to the conclusion of the Light and Darkness saga, this is the story of Destiny. There was once an ancient civilization that was struggling to survive. Their struggle came to an abrupt halt, though, when they found a giant paracausal orb, which they called the Gardener. It was an entity of light and life. The Gardener blessed them with a golden age of prosperity. Despite the gifts that were bestowed on them, they craved something else. They craved a purpose and meaning. They wanted a winnower to shape the garden that had been created, to cut away the unfettered chaos that is found in the light. The people discovered that there was another entity called the Veil that shared a connection with the Gardener, and the Veil was an entity of darkness. The light and darkness are two ancient forces that flow through the universe, and the people believed that bringing the Veil to their planet would bring structure and meaning to their existence. So they brought the Veil to their home to connect with the Gardener, with hopes of creating that final shape of reality where only perfection would remain. The Gardener would not allow this, however, and it fled their world. Left with only the Veil, the people used the power of the darkness to merge themselves into one single being. They became an entity called the Witness, which would then set off across the universe with its Black Fleet. The Witness set off in pursuit of the Gardener with the goal of enacting its perfect final shape, to ultimately impose meaning on a meaningless universe. For untold time, the Gardener would travel from world to world, fleeing from the darkness. Along the way, it would terraform worlds and grant blessings to its inhabitants. These blessings, however, were often short-lived, only lasting until the darkness arrived. In some cases, though, the Witness was a step ahead, and it would arrive at a new world before the Gardener could move in and bless the species. One such world was called Fundament, where a weak species called the Krill was struggling to survive on a violent world. The Witness arrived first and tricked the Krill into embracing the power of the darkness. They were granted great power, but it was a cursed existence. They became infected with worms that needed to be fed with destruction or else they would consume their hosts. Now acting in perpetual service to their worms, the Krill became known as the Hive. These Hive were led by three siblings, Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu Arath. Together, they went from system to system and annihilated countless civilizations in order to feed their worms. The Gardener would later find its way to the Reese system, the home of the Elixni. They were given great blessings, just like many other worlds, and the Elixni decided to call the Gardener the Great Machine. Eventually, though, as with all worlds, the Gardener eventually fled, and the Elixni, now known as the Fallen, experienced what they call the Whirlwind, and it was a terrible, apocalyptic time for the species. The Fallen left the Reese system in pursuit of the Gardener. Eventually, around the year 2014, the Gardener arrived here in the Sol system. It terraformed many planets and moons, human lifespan tripled, and it brought life to everything. This included Mars, and once humanity detected the Gardener on Mars, we sent out a small crew to investigate the strange moon-like structure. Due to its odd movements, we called it the Traveler, and it would give humanity our own golden age. Eventually, though, the Black Fleet and the darkness would arrive. In all of the past situations like this, the Traveler decided to flee the darkness, but in this case, it decided to remain in Sol and finally make a stand. During the ensuing battle, Savathun, one of the three Hive siblings, betrayed the Witness by killing its disciple Nezarec, as well as hiding the Veil on Neptune. Savathun then tricked the Witness into leaving the system entirely. However, the Traveler collapsed and became dormant just above the last city on Earth. As a final act, it created the Ghosts, and these small entities of light would seek out deceased warriors throughout the system, resurrect them, and give them the ability to bear the powers of the light. Humanity fell into a dark age, not only engaging in civil war, but also having to fight back against the enemy races of the Hive, Fallen, Cabal, and Vex. Humanity would remain in darkness for centuries. In about the 35th century, our Guardian awakened in the Cosmodrome of Old Russia for the first time after our ghost found us scattered among the remains of an old freeway. As is usual for freshly resurrected Guardians, we had no memory of our past or where we came from. Our ghost guided us into the Cosmodrome wall, where we were able to scavenge for our first few weapons, fight off waves of Fallen, and find an old jump ship that we were able to salvage. Upon reaching the tower, we met the Vanguard, leaders of the defense of the last city. They are led by Zavala, who represents the Titans, Ikora for Warlocks, and Cade 6 for Hunters. We also met the Speaker, who gave us a briefing on our history with the Traveler and our never-ending battle with the Darkness. We set out across the solar system to fight against the Darkness while also being watched by a shadowy figure called the Stranger. We finally met her on Venus, where she told us that we have to travel to the Black Garden. There, at its heart, was an imperfect replica of the Veil. We had to go there to destroy it in order to allow the Traveler to heal after its collapse. In order to access the Black Garden, however, we needed to seek help from the Awoken of the Reef, a region within the asteroid belt. There we met with the Queen Marasov and her brother Uldren. They did not give us the warmest of welcomes, but they did agree to help. After acquiring some parts, Uldren created a key that allowed us to access the Black Garden on Mars. There we found the Vex worshipping the heart of the Black Garden. It brought the statues of the shrine to life, but we defeated them, and this destroyed the heart. With our objective complete, the Traveler was still dormant, but now it was healing. We were heralded as a hero back in the last city, but as the Stranger gifted us her rifle, she reminded us that the real fight is still out there. Eris Morn, an expert of Hive lore, came to the tower to warn us of an impending Hive invasion of the moon. They were trying to awaken Crota, the son of Oryx the Taken King. We needed to take the fight to Crota and defeat him before another great disaster could occur. Eris was once a member of the fire team that tried to defeat Crota, and she was the only member to survive the horrors that lie below. We cleared out some of the advanced forces in the Cosmodrome, including infestations inside some of the facilities of the great AI known as Rasputin. We then traveled to the moon and destroyed a crystal containing Crota's soul, holding off the invasion and resurrection for now. Crota, however, still existed in his throne world, a sort of refuge in the Ascendant Plane. We needed to find a way to defeat him in that realm if we wanted to defeat Crota for good. So we assembled a fire team of 6 and went back into the depths of the Hellmouth, entered his throne world, and defeated him, eliminating the great threat that had already caused so much destruction for humanity. With one threat neutralized, Queen Marasov of the Reef reached out to ask for help. The Fallen's House of Wolves were previously captured by the Reef, but now they had rebelled, led by the Kel Skolas. A Kel is a leader of a fallen house, and after being freed by a mysterious race called the Nine, Kel Skolas was up to no good. We worked alongside Petra Venge, the Queen's Wrath of the Awoken, as well as Varix, a friendly Elixni and scribe for the former House of Judgment. Together, we worked to prevent Skolas from uniting all of the remaining fallen houses and becoming the Kel of Kels. We waged war against the Fallen and eventually tracked Skolas to Venus. We managed to trap him and bring him back to the Prison of Elders. Inside the prison, Skolas managed to start a riot, but we were called in to go put an end to this riot and to Skolas himself. Word had reached Oryx, the Taken King, about our defeat of his son Crota, and he was none too pleased. He arrived in the Sol system with his massive ship called the Dreadnought, as well as his army of Hive and Taken. The Taken are forces corrupted by the darkness. They have no will, and their work is only to serve their master. The ability to take or corrupt is an extremely dark power learned by Oryx, stolen from the worm god Akka. The first major battle took place in orbit around Saturn, where Oryx used the Dreadnought's superweapon to annihilate the Awoken forces, including Queen Mara herself. Cade 6 then found a way to get us inside of Oryx's ship in order to try to take out this weapon. Once this objective was achieved, we set our sights on Oryx himself. We first fought him in our world, and then, just like his son before him, we raided his throne world and put him to his final death, sending his corpse floating towards Saturn. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Fallen had gained access to an ancient human technology called Siva. This was an extremely dangerous nanotechnology with the ability to self-assemble, replicate, and think. It could be used to create basically anything, but could also be extremely destructive. Siva had been locked away due to the danger it posed and since it caused such great damage to the Iron Lords. We worked with Lord Saladin, one of the last remaining Iron Lords, to fight against the newly augmented Fallen called Splicers. We made our way into the original replication chamber, where many Iron Lords had sacrificed their lives to contain Siva in the first place, and we destroyed the chamber, finally ending the threat. The Red Legion of the Cabal, led by their leader Dominus Gaul, attacked the last city of Earth. Gaul put a harness around the Traveler, removing our Guardian's ability to use the light. Gaul also captured the Speaker, a very old mentor of Guardians. He wanted the Speaker to teach him how to convince the Traveler to grant him the power of the light. Meanwhile, desperate for a way to fight back, our Guardian found a shard of the Traveler near the European Dead Zone and used it to get our light abilities back. We proceeded to travel to Titan, Nessus, and Io in order to reunite the Vanguard and wage a war against the Red Legion. All the while, Gaul was still interrogating the Speaker and trying to get access to the light. But eventually, Gaul's consul got tired of waiting and eliminated the Speaker. The consul believed that Gaul should simply be taking the light for himself instead of trying to learn how to make the Traveler gift it to him. Angry, Gaul killed the consul, and with the Speaker now dead as well, he decided to go ahead and use the cage around the Traveler to take the light by force. We found our way onto Gaul's command ship, and he was now using the light powers that he had stolen from the Traveler. We defeated him, but Gaul tried to revive himself with his stolen powers. However, right in the middle of his resurrection, the Traveler awakened and fired out a shockwave of light all across the universe, which destroyed Gaul and restored abilities to all of the other Guardians. This was a great win for us, but this shockwave also had dire consequences. It awakened the Witness's Dark Fleet in the far corners of the universe. During this time, Emperor Callus also arrived in the Sol system. He was the former emperor of the Cabal before he was dethroned by Gaul. We boarded his massive Leviathan ship and passed his trials before defeating a giant animatronic figure that was made in his image. The Warlock Vanguard Ikora showed us a damaged ghost by the name of Sagira. She told us it belonged to Osiris, one of the greatest warlocks to ever live. However, Osiris had been living in exile for some time, so she sent us to Mercury to investigate. There we met Brother Vance, a cultist who told us how we can revive Sagira. We took her to a hidden temple in the European Dead Zone in order to revive her. We learned that Osiris had been investigating the Infinite Forest on Mercury, and this is a Vex installation used to run simulations of various possibilities. We entered the forest and found a reflection of Osiris who explained that the Vex mind Panoptes was running simulations to try to create a dark future where humanity is defeated and neither light nor darkness exists anymore. All life is lost in this future, so Osiris asks for our help in defeating Panoptes to avoid this dark future. We searched throughout the timelines, which proved to be challenging, but eventually with the help of Osiris's reflections, Panoptes fell. Together, we exited the Infinite Forest with Osiris, where he saw his former student Ikora for the first time in many years. She invited him back to the city, but he said he must remain in the forest to stop the Vex from finding a different path to the dark future. Before we left Mercury, our ghost picked up a weak signal coming from the Infinite Forest, and Brother Vance thought it might belong to the legendary Titan, Saint 14. He sent us into the forest to try and locate him, as we had done with Osiris before. Inside, we found the remains of Saint 14, along with thousands of dead Vex. In that specific version of the future, he lost his battle, but the Vex had built a memorial to him, seemingly in awe of the great warrior that he was. On Mars, the Guardian named Anna Bray had been hiding away working to learn more about the AI Warmind Rasputin, as well as her family's past. When the Traveler awoke and shot out that massive shockwave of light across the universe, it also awoke a slumbering force of Hive on Mars that were led by the Hive worm god Zol. We traveled to Mars to assist Anna in winning back the Warmind facilities with the hopes that the Warmind might help us in our battle against the darkness. In our quest to find Zul, we encountered Nokris, brother of Crota, who was banished by his father Oryx due to his heretical practice of necromancy. We defeated him and then set our sights on Zul. Together, with the help of the Warmind's javelin weapon system, we were able to defeat them. We then went to talk with Rasputin, and he asserted that he will continue to protect humanity, but only on his own terms and not the Vanguard's. Trouble was once again brewing in the Reef. With the absence of Queen Mara Sov, organized crime had been breaking out all over the asteroid belt. Also, her brother, Uldren Sov, became corrupted by a taken wish dragon, an Ahamkara named Riven. There was a massive jailbreak in the Prison of Elders, and the now corrupt Uldren Sov rallied his own army of the Scorn Barons who were escaping. The Scorn are a corrupt, undead version of the Fallen who were also created by Riven. In an effort to stop this disastrous outbreak, our Hunter Vanguard Cade 6 joined Petravenge in the prison. Unfortunately, during the conflict, Cade's ghost was destroyed by the Scorn, leaving him vulnerable with no hope of resurrection should he fall. Ultimately, in his weakened state, having lost his connection to the light, he was put to his end at the hands of Uldren. Angered by Cade's murder, we traveled to the Tangled Shore in the Reef to investigate and work with a shady Elixni by the name of Spider. He was frustrated by the havoc the Scorn had caused his business, so he agreed to help us find Uldren Sov if we first defeated the Scorn Barons one by one. After doing so, and after defeating Uldren's number 1 in command, Fikrul the Fanatic, we entered the Awoken Watchtower in pursuit of Uldren Sov. Uldren was consumed by the voice of Riven that was corrupting him, and we fought back against this horrifying creature. Upon its defeat, we find Uldren Sov on the ground, and pick up Ace of Spades, the weapon that Uldren had stolen from Cade. Together with Petravenge, we confronted Uldren, and put him to his end. We proceeded to find our way into the hidden Awoken homeworld of the Dreaming City. There, we hunted down and defeated the taken Ahamkara Riven, and cleansed her taken heart. However, at the same time, Riven was able to transcend death and make one final wish that would put the Dreaming City under a curse. We emerged and found that the Dreaming City was now corrupt by the Taken. For 3 weeks, we battled against the Taken as the Dreaming City became more and more corrupt. Eventually, thinking we had won, we found a way to access the throne world of Mara Sov, where we learned that she is actually still alive. We declared victory, but were quickly corrected as we learned that the Dreaming City was stuck in a constant time loop, where history continued to repeat itself again and again. Around the same time, a mysterious lightbearer going by the name of Drifter showed up at the tower and started using Guardians to play this dangerous game that he called Gambit. This game controversially made use of Motes of Darkness to summon Taken into a Guardian versus Guardian competition. An exo by the name of Ada 1 also showed up in the tower as the last remaining member of the Black Armory Foundry. The Red War had left the Foundry without access to their forges, so she enlisted us to clear out the forges of enemies and allow them to reopen in order to craft their weapons. We worked all over the system to do this, and while doing so, we slowly earned her trust and weapons. We then went into the Batsa district of the last city, where the Fallen, led by the Spider's brother Civics, were attempting to gain access to the Black Armory vault. There we defeated Insurrection Prime and thus secured the vault. We tracked Civics down to Niobe Labs, which contained the Berguzia Forge, and there we faced off and defeated Civics. This helped us secure Ada 1's full trust and allowed us to craft the powerful Izanagi's Burden sniper rifle. Separately, a solitary ghost named Pulled Pork was still looking for its guardian, and it had found its way into the Dreaming City. It came across the grave of Uldren and resurrected him as a guardian. Uldren renamed his ghost Glint, and since becoming a guardian wipes all memory, Uldren had no knowledge of his past crimes. Things started to quiet down for a little bit, but Drifter had been hard at work and he invited us to participate in a new variation of his game mode called Gambit Prime, as well as a new activity known as The Reckoning. We met Orin, emissary of the Nine, and learned that the Drifter had been playing these games of Gambit at bequest of the Nine as they prepare for the coming darkness. Emperor Callus made another appearance and invited us to board his Leviathan ship for further testing and rewards, this time in his menagerie. Callus had become obsessed with the arrival of the darkness and wished for us to become one of his elite shadows who would be there with him at the end of all existence. During our time in the Menagerie, we defeated many of his champions, but we learned that hidden within the Leviathan was another creature named Galron. Callus had come across an ancient hive artifact called the Crown of Sorrow, and suspected that it was corrupted. In hopes of being able to control the hive with this crown, Callus bred a cabal named Galron to be strong-willed and then put the crown on his head. This was indeed a trap laid by the Witch Queen Savathun in hopes of corrupting Callus should he wear the crown. Instead, it was Galron who became corrupted, but this still invited a hive infestation into the Leviathan. Callus called on us to clear out the infestation and defeat the corrupted Galron. While exploring the moon, Eris Morn came across a hidden pyramid ship of the darkness, sleeping in the depths of a massive cave. With its discovery, the ship brought nightmares, haunting figures of friends and enemies long past. Eris instructed us to find a way inside. After facing nightmares of our prior enemies, we slowly forged a Dreambane armor set that would allow us to enter the pyramid. Inside, the pyramid seemingly possessed our ghost in order to talk to us. We explored the ship and captured an artifact that we brought back for Eris. The darkness also showed as a haunting mirror image of ourselves, and told us that they are not our friend, not our enemy, but our salvation. At this time, the Vex began invading the moon, and we learned that the Undying Mind, which we had previously defeated, was behind this. We worked to construct a special Vex portal that could bring the Undying Mind from all timelines into ours, where we could finally defeat it for good. Osiris had been trying to find a way to navigate the corridors of time in order to bring his lover, Saint 14, back to life, and he created the sundial in order to do so. However, his objective proved impossible until the Undying Mind's defeat, which opened up a new timeline that perhaps provided a better opportunity to save his dear friend. At the same time, a few Cabal Science Sisters discovered the sundial. They wanted to use the sundial in order to find a way to change the past and have the Cabal win the Red War and succeed in their invasion of the last city. We intervened in order to prevent them from making this timeline a reality. In our quest to defeat these sisters, we also found a way to intervene during key moments in Saint 14's past, and we were able to find a way to save him and bring him back to modern times. We also experienced a strange moment when exploring the corridors of time and unlocking its puzzles, and strangely, we found our own grave, laid with our favorite weapon, Bastion. We proceeded to defeat 3 out of the 4 sisters, leaving just 1 remaining to try and see their plan through. The final remaining Scion sister resorted to desperate measures and sent the Red Legion's planet killer ship, the Almighty, into a collision course with the last city. We joined up with Anna Bray to try and power up some of Rasputin's satellites and defense systems to take the Almighty down before it destroyed the final remnants of humanity. After bringing numerous Seraph bunkers online and expanding our defenses, we watched as the Almighty was destroyed by Rasputin shortly before it would crash into the last city. During this time, Rasputin also revealed that many pyramid ships were quickly approaching our solar system, giving everyone an impending sense of doom. After a brief time, the pyramid ships arrived, and despite Rasputin's best attempts, they would not go down easily. The darkness tried to communicate with us, but something was getting in its way. Nokris, the brother of Crota, became the supplicant of the Hive Witch Queen Savathun and taught her necromancy. She also tasked him with running interference so we could not commune with the darkness and learn of its powers. Eris believed that investigating the darkness was important for avoiding a second collapse, but Commander Zavala did not approve. He did eventually allow us to assist Eris though, and during our investigations, we were once again confronted by Nokris. We defeated him for the final time, and this allowed a path to open between us and the darkness itself. The darkness spoke to us once again through our ghost, and it invited us to Europa to take up its ancient power. As the darkness encroached on the Sol system, it consumed many planets, including Mars, Titan, Io, and Mercury. We decided to answer the call of the darkness, and we ventured to Europa, a moon of Jupiter. Our Elixni friend Varix was there, and he had sent out a distress call for help after finding a splinter of the darkness. While he was making the call, the Exostranger appeared and stole the splinter before quickly disappearing. Another Elixni by the name of Aramis was also here in search of the splinter, and she had been granted the power of stasis by the darkness. She confronted Varix and used the power of stasis to freeze him in place. However, we arrived and set him free before her minions could do away with him. To help us on our search for Aramis, the stranger gave us the splinter she had stolen from Varix and coached us about the darkness power she had learned to use. We communed with the darkness and slowly grew in our own use of stasis. We used its power to take down Aramis's lieutenants and eventually Aramis herself by turning her into a statue of stasis. We then worked with the stranger, now known to us as Anna's sister, Elsie Bray, to learn more about their past. In the process, we learned more about their extremely significant father, Clovis Bray, who founded Braytech, created the Exos, and built this massive facility on Europa. At this time, Oryx and Savathun's sister, Xivu Arath, was wreaking absolute havoc. She destroyed Osiris's ghost, Sagira, while he was on the moon, leaving him very vulnerable and without his light. We went to the moon to rescue him, and as we were cleaning up the hive, a familiar face dealt a final blow to a hive knight, saving Osiris's life. He introduced himself as Crow, but we knew him as none other than Ultron Sov. He said his boss wanted to see us and called us to the reef. The risen Guardian Uldren, now known as Crow, was basically a new person since he had no memories of his past life and wrongdoings. Despite this, every Guardian hated him and would kill him on sight. He felt like he had nowhere to go, but eventually he found the spider and began working for him. Crow took us to the spider, and together they asked us to assist in clearing out Xivu Arath's Wrathborn from the Tangled Shore. It turned out they had infected the Dreaming City as well, so together we worked to eliminate their forces. After defeating Xivu Arath's commanding High Celebrant, our Guardian tricked the spider into freeing Crow. We returned with him to the tower, not quite sure how people would react to seeing that face again. Callus's daughter, Keitel, who had a hand in Gaul's rise and Callus's exile, decided to come to Sol and have the Guardians join her empire. She was seeking help in her battle against the Hive because the Cabal homeworld had been destroyed by Xivu Arath's forces. Zavala refused her invitation, and tensions were very high. Osiris also assigned Crow to be his bodyguard, but urged him to keep at a distance with his mask on, as not to be recognized as the murderer of Cade 6. Eventually, Zavala agreed to challenge Keitel in the right of proving and picked us as his champion to face off against Keitel's top champion. We battled, and after we defeated her champion, Keitel agreed to a truce with the Vanguard. While undergoing a blood oath with Zavala, another Scion attempted to kill Zavala, and Crow's identity was revealed as he stepped in to protect him. Around this time, we stumbled upon an abandoned Cabal ship that seemed to be from Callus's fleet called the Glykon. We investigated the ship, but it was filled with nothing but scorn and some interesting flora. We eventually discovered the Crown of Sorrow was here and previously was used by Callus to communicate with the Witness, and Osiris decided to retrieve it despite its dangers. We now had a newly forged alliance with Keitel's Cabal forces, but things were still not going very well. The last city had been plunged into an endless night by the Vex, and the sun did not rise for the first time in our history. Ikora asked us to collaborate with the friendly Elixni Mithrax, and he helped us navigate the Vex network to combat the Vex. Mithrax and his people were then invited to seek refuge in the Fallen Quarter and eventually the last city, and this was seen as a controversial choice in the opinions of some less trusting humans. The leader of future war cult, Lakshmi, was one of the most outspoken voices against these new residents, and unfortunately some crimes were committed against our new neighbors. We discovered that Savathun, through the taken mind of Korea, was behind the endless night. The Guardians worked to defeat Korea so the sun could once again rise. When Korea was eventually defeated and the Elixni protected from the Vex incursion, a new alliance was forged between humanity and the Elixni. There were suspicions that Osiris may have been involved with the Endless Night, and so Ikora put out a warrant for his arrest. With the help of Crow and Saint 14, we went into the Dreaming City and found him alongside Mara Sov. Osiris then revealed that he was actually Savathun, and she had taken his form after saving him from her sister Xivu Arath. Mara Sov then put Savathun into a chrysalis form at her request, which was essentially like transforming her into a cocoon. This was in an attempt to expunge the worm from Savathun, the worm that she had been in service to ever since she left Fundament. We then proceeded to work on freeing some of Marasov's Techeuns that were trapped in the Ascendant Realm while also fighting back Xivu Arath's forces. After enough time had passed, Marasov performed the ritual to finally excise the worm from Savathun. Savathun's cocoon shattered and she instantly escaped, leaving a weakened Osiris in her place. Though thankful for his return, Osiris would be very ill and in a coma for some time, and there was no cure in sight. After her escape, Savathun traveled to the last city to see the Traveler. She was gravely injured following the removal of her worm. She called out to the Traveler in her final moments, declaring herself as a supplicant in its service before she died. However, not all was lost for her, because she was soon resurrected by a ghost by the name of Amaru. Along with some of her Lucent Hive brood, Savathun gained the powers of the light. Just like a guardian though, she had lost her memory, so if she wanted to see her plans through, she needed to find a way to regain them. Strangely, Mars had returned from the darkness, and there, Savathun's ship and an entrance to her throne world appeared. Ikora called us in to investigate. Along our journey, we came across a ghost named Finch who was refusing to revive his Hive Lightbearer and was instead trying to figure out what Savathun was up to by using the light. In hopes of understanding what her plans were, Finch unknowingly sent us on a scavenger hunt throughout her throne world. We were searching for artifacts that ultimately allowed Savathun to recover her memories that she lost when she was revived and became a Lightbearer. During the Vanguard's investigations of a worm familiar recovered from Savathun's temple, Ikora learned of the history of the Hive, that they were not always destined for evil, but were originally supposed to be chosen by the light before the darkness intervened. Despite these learnings, the Traveler had disappeared from the last city, and it seemed that Savathun had brought it into her throne world. But this was something that the Vanguard could not allow. We ultimately battled Savathun in order to rescue the Traveler, and during this time we revealed the truth about the darkness's deception against her, something that she could not believe. We eventually defeated her, but her ghost Amaru escaped before it could be destroyed. The Vanguard took Savathun's remains for safekeeping. At this point, the witness was revealed to us for the first time. It called out the Traveler for all of the death that it had caused. In Savathun's throne world, we discovered a pyramid ship, and inside was one of the witness's disciples named Rolk. We went in and defeated him, dealing the witness a major blow. Keitel agreed to use her forces to help battle against the Lucent Hive that had infected parts of the Sol system. She made use of her scions to wage psychic warfare against Savathun's brood to sever their connection to the light and capture their leaders so they could learn about their goals. Pro raised ethical questions about this strategy and intervened with the equipment facilitating these operations, accidentally killing the scions in the process. Keitel demanded Crow's life as punishment, but Saladin stepped in and offered himself instead. Impressed, she decided to spare Crow, and she made Saladin a member of her war council, becoming Bracca's Forge. Around this time, we also learned that Callus had aligned himself with the Witness and the Black Fleet, and had been supporting the Scion faction that had previously attempted to assassinate Zavala. Callus's ship, the Leviathan, suddenly revealed itself above the moon. Guardians investigated and learned that the ship was now also haunted by nightmares. Eris Morn then conducted a hive ritual binding us, Zavala, Crow, the Crown of Sorrow, and a Nightmare Harvester. We used the Harvester to take the nightmares haunting the allies, sever them, and then bind them to the Crown of Sorrow, weakening Callus's connection with the Lunar Pyramid. Despite their best effort, Callus immediately still took control of the pyramid, we rushed in with our team, and Keitel confronted her father's consciousness. Together with Keitel, we defeated it, but Callus, now a disciple of the Witness, was still a threat. Callus later sent a warning message to the last city and informed everyone that the Witness is coming for the Traveler and that it cannot be stopped. Drifter enlisted the Guardian to help smuggle the Spider into the Elixni quarter of the last city. Once there, the Spider asked us to go find his catch on Europa and take it back from the House of Salvation. We learned from Mithrax and his daughter, the scribe Ido, that Aramis had been released from her stasis prison by the Witness, and she was now trying to find relics which contained body parts of Nezarak. These relics were thought to be quite powerful, so the Guardians hunted them down to keep them away from the Witness. Ultimately, Mithrax used these relics to prepare a concoction to revive the sleeping Osiris. Anna Bray had been attempting to bring back the Warmind Rasputin ever since Mars was consumed by the darkness. The forces of Xivu Arath infected Braytech on Europa, so we had to fight our way through in order to reach Clovis Bray's AI. Once online, Rasputin informed us of Clovis Bray's plans. Clovis wanted to use the Warmind to destroy the Traveler so that he himself could instead become humanity's savior, and obviously we could not let this happen. We also learned that Xivu Arath was preparing to invade Earth. Aramis, by order of the Witness, had gained control of the Warmind and had intended to use the Warsat network to destroy the Traveler. Sensing its impending destruction, the traveler began to leave Earth. But while it was leaving, Rasputin asked Anna to activate his self-destruct sequence, destroying him but in turn preventing the traveler's destruction. The plan was successful, Rasputin was destroyed, and therefore the traveler stopped fleeing in low Earth orbit. Aramis, having lived through the whirlwind way back when the traveler abandoned the Elixni, asked why the traveler stayed. The witness replied because it has nowhere else to run, as the pyramids were now on Earth's doorstep. We then received a hidden message from Rasputin that he had recorded before his destruction, and it revealed that a hidden city was on Neptune, where perhaps one of Savathun's secrets could be found in order to help against the witness. The witness arrived at the traveler and was given a vision of the location of the veil on Neptune, exactly where Savathun had previously hidden it. The witness then sent Calus and his forces to gain access to it. Working off of the intelligence provided by Rasputin's message, we also arrived on Neptune at this time along with Osiris. There we met the Cloudstriders Rohan and Nimbus, who were protecting a hidden human population that relied on the veil for their survival. We also discovered the power of Strand, and used it in our fight to prevent Calus's access to the veil. Calus first tried to construct a radial mast to help connect the witness to the veil, but due to our efforts and Rohan's sacrifice, we were able to destroy it. Calus then tried to capture the veil by brute force. Keitel and her forces held him off for some time, but ultimately Calus pushed past them and made his way to the veil. It was there that we confronted him and ultimately defeated him for good. However, after his death, our ghost became possessed and forged a connection with the veil, providing a vital link that allowed the witness to open a portal into the traveler. The witness then proceeded to enter the traveler. This is where it hoped to forge its final shape, its perfect version of reality, and no one else was able to follow. During this time, Calus's Shadow Legion cabal had been taking human prisoners. Despite not being guardians, Devrim Kay, Amanda Holiday, and Mithrax began leading operations to rescue these captives. Since the witness was now inside the traveler and there was no clear way to follow it, we set out to help with their rescue. In order to break through their prisons, we would travel in and out of the Ascendant Plane. During one such mission, Aramis reached out to Mithrax and warned that if he proceeded with this particular rescue attempt, he would die. Despite her warning, Mithrax and Amanda Holiday decided to proceed. Mithrax found the prisoners, but then the facility went into lockdown. Amanda hotwired the facility to allow their escape, but moments later, an explosion took her life. During Mithrax's escape, Aramis also comes and places down some stasis to save Mithrax from the explosion. Zavala was particularly devastated by the loss of Amanda. She had sacrificed her life despite only having one to give. The Guardians continued to look for a way through the portal in the Traveler, but everything continued to fail. Titan had returned from the darkness, and Deputy Commander Sloan turned out to be alive but in trouble. We traveled there and discovered that she had been connecting with a giant sea leviathan named Asa. Asa wanted to help us in our fight against the Witness, so we worked to strengthen Sloan and Asa's connection so that she could communicate with us. Asa told us about the origins of the Witness and how it embodies an entire civilization that has been hunting the Traveler for millennia in order to create the final shape. We also learned that Savathun was the only one who could help us find our way into the Traveler to pursue the Witness. It became clear that we needed to allow Savathun's ghost, Amaro, to resurrect the Witch Queen, but he would only do that if the Guardians helped in defeating Xivu Arath. In order to do so, Eris Morn needed to become much stronger, so through the use of the Acolyte Staff, she underwent a ritual to become a hive god herself. We became one of her acolytes and we tithed our tributes of war. Every enemy we defeated made her stronger. We continued to strengthen ourselves by battling against Xivu's forces and eventually by slaying one of her top soldiers. At this point, Amaro finally resurrected Savathun, who was then immediately killed by Eris Morn. During this time, she briefly became the most powerful hive who has ever lived due to enacting sword logic. Eris then used this power to banish Xivu Arath from her throne world, making her a mortal. Savathun was then resurrected again and she departed, but she left her ghost behind. While she was flying though, our guardian noticed a pattern in her wings. A pattern that actually represented the 15th and final wish granted by Riven before her defeat a number of years ago. After discovering the 15th wish, we traveled to the Dreaming City to invoke it. The spirit of Riven appeared before us, but rejected our wish. It turned out that Riven was upset over the loss of all her eggs. In order for her to grant us that wish, Riven wished to strike a bargain. She asked for us to first recover some of her remaining eggs that had been lost throughout time. We accepted and began to recover her eggs scattered across the Ascendant Realm. Once all of the eggs had been recovered, Riven finally granted this last wish, creating a portal into the Traveler, but only one person could pass through. Due to his extremely strong connection with his sister, it was decided that Crow would be the single person to enter the Traveler. The plan is that he can use his strong connection with Marasav to form a bridge we can all cross. So Crow has gone through the portal and is now on his way inside the Traveler. As expected, Marasav can still feel his presence, so it's only a matter of time before we can follow. Although we've witnessed quite a story over these past 10 years, we've also seen some absolutely incredible weapons in the history of Destiny. From the reign of the original Galahorn to the dominance of the Brave Arsenal, these weapons have defined our experiences as Guardians, and that's why I recommend watching this video covering the entire evolution of Destiny's weapons. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this abridged version of Destiny's story. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and if you get one of these surveys, leaving a 5-star rating helps a ton. As always though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.